Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Soul Diving Sunday show featuring transformational life coach Shelley Wizen and your hosts Lisa and Nancy. Welcome everybody and happy 2025. Can you imagine that 2025? I remember Y2K, and at Y2K 2000 we thought the world was going to go back to hieroglyphics and the Rosetta Stone. How are we going to communicate? Computers were in our lives at that time. The beginning of cell phone technology. What were we going to do? And I thought, hey, I'll go out on a farm and live out in the bush. That's all right with me. And then nothing happened. But we all had to think about change and transformation. So, as you know, Shelley Wizen, transformational life coach and also author, is here on Big Blend Radio every first Sunday. And we're going to talk about her world as being a transformational life coach. Now, she has been on our show for a number of years, but the last 2 years, we've been doing her podcast channel, Soul Diving Sunday, with Shelley. And we've got special publications coming out starting today. So look in the episode notes for the link where every season or so we put out a digital magazine of her articles and past interviews so you can catch up with her, especially if you've not heard the podcast before. So welcome back, Shelley. We've got a whole new year ahead of us, new projects. Doesn't it feel good?
Yeah, it's exciting. There's just so many new possibilities. I love that.
Well, change is scary. Like Y2K freaked people out, but it made people think of other things and what was important to them. So is that what transformation is about, is finding what's important?
Absolutely. I mean, whose life are we living anyway? Are we living the idea of somebody else's idea of the way we need to live our life? Or are we living our life? So we get mixed up a little bit. We kind of transpose certain beliefs of we start behaving like we should, which is my least favorite.
I said that word on a podcast the other day and I went, oh,
did you catch yourself?
I did. And I'm like, oh, Shelley would be upset with me right now.
Well, not upset, but I would just be
nudging.
Alerted. I would be alerted. I would be, my alarms would go off. Here's what happens to me. It's very interesting. We get alert. We are allergic to certain things, some of us. I'm allergic to wool. I can touch it with my hand, but I can't put it against my skin. I just start breaking out and itching and, I'm allergic to the frequency of the word should. And what happens when I hear it, no matter who says it, no matter when, it's like static. It's something that goes in my energy field.
It's a negative.
The frequency of it resonates negativity. And so I'm alarmed. I get alarmed when I hear that word. And sometimes I do my best not to be obnoxious about it, but I almost can't help myself. It's like some fragrances just drive me nuts. I can't even be around.
Oh, I'm like that. Yeah.
Fragrant,
Well, I think, it's getting to know who you are and what you are, and the shoulda, couldas are annoying and it's mean. And I know I've done it a lot and do it. And then now I'm like, ooh, and I've said it. And I think I even said it to Nancy. Oh, everybody went quiet
without even realizing it.
Well, yeah, see, but it's a habit. And it's like, okay, shoulda, coulda. And transformation should be joyous, right? But it's a rocky road because
change. Oh, that's so funny what you just said.
It should be.
Transformation should be.
See, I just did it.
How does that even go together?
Could be. If we take the should out of it.
Yeah, we don't want to should all over ourselves.
No.
If we should all over ourselves or anybody else, it feels yucky. It just feels icky. It's not uplifting. It's not, enlightening. It's not fun. It's not joyous. It's scolding.
It is. We just went through a very interesting experience that I won't get into. And it wasn't, the experience wasn't as promised. And it was a very negative experience. And this is where the should haves came, came out, and it was should have been this way, should have that, should have, could have, because now we're in anger mode and upset mode, and and we have every right to be. It was a very negative situation, and that's where the shouldas. And then I thought, well, how do you justify the shouldas?
Okay, so here's something that I'm getting right now with what you just shared with me. Was there any indication or a red flag at some point
Oh,
before
of
all
course.
that
Oh, yes.
happened?
I'm already
That
answering you. Yes.
now, now,
Oh, am I pointing my finger back at me now?
because the anger comes from us not honoring ourselves
Ah,
and acknowledging the red flag
ee.
and saying, you know what, this doesn't feel good to me. This
Mm.
doesn't feel good to me right now. So either we got to change what we're doing in the way that we're doing it, or I can't do it.
See, when you go against your first instinct, you always lose.
Well, that's a good belief too, because it may not be the first instinct, but it may be an
The
instinct.
the gut, the gut
uh,
thing, when it's
Yeah,
really telling you, when it's going, hello,
yeah,
hello, don't do this, and you go, and
it'll
then
be all
the
right.
shouldas come after that.
Yeah.
The
So
shouldas.
the anger is, yes, they manifested it in the outside
Ah,
world to let you see it. So you're angry at the it, and they played it out because you didn't honor yourself. So either you did it out of guilt,
ah,
you should have, you thought you should do it.
mm,
So that's a setup. You see, should is a setup word.
ugh.
I know.
I I don't want to be set up to shouldas.
And that's right. And we do
See,
it to our,
basically, we're giving ourselves diarrhea.
oh, not good.
No, I don't want it, because if you have too many shouldas, you're gonna get
It
the
just
full
feels
on
bad. Let's
stream.
just face it, it feels bad. It doesn't
So
feel
is
good
that
when you do this.
so a as a transformation coach, and someone comes in, I should have done this, I could have done that, I didn't, but I did. And then yeah. And as soon as you say this, I'm already, my head's going down as we talk. I'm already looking green, everybody. I'm in the festive spirit here because we are recording this around the holidays. Um, Shelly's perfectly festive and red, and I'm green, but I'm not going to say I should have done this or that because it's just what it is. Um, when someone comes to you as a transformational life coach, a lot of times it's going to be at that point of how many times are you like, are people kind of attacking themselves?
All the time.
Eh, that's
And
my new shoulda. Eh.
subconsciously, unconsciously, right?
Okay.
Unconsciously, subconsciously, because
Mm,
we buy into this mass consciousness, this mass conditioning, and we buy into it. Don Miguel calls it domestication. We get domesticated as children to way the mass consciousness thinks everything
mm.
should be.
Oh,
It's an overall big overriding should, an umbrella should, and everything that fits under that should is acceptable. Anything
mm,
outside of that should is not. But what is connected to a should is judgment. And so when we're sitting in judgment of ourselves or anybody else negatively with anger, that there's a projection there. There's not an owning of our responsibility of choosing to do something that maybe we didn't really want to do, but we thought we should do it, so we did it. But then we can say, oh, I shouldn't have done it. I mean,
were
it's,
you there when we were there?
I am always there.
You were. You would have told, run, girls, run. No.
So call me next time before you decide anything
Well,
based
if
on a
I
should.
called you, I should have called you. Haha, just kidding. No, if I did, you would have been laughing.
I probably,
Seriously. You would have laughed. You'll giggle. But you know what, this is the interesting thing. It's about how society has set up their rules. I wasn't there. Like I have a friend who said, this is the I'm not getting political, but these are the American, rules and rights, and this is what was written down in the congressional laws and all that. And she goes, "Oh, a bunch of old men got together and wrote the rules for all of us. I don't remember women being part of that conversation.
Right.
Those are their rules, not mine." And so she was just like, "I don't care. I don't care. It's not my rules." And I think that's where, and I know you love music and the arts and have been involved in it. You're a writer, you're creative. I think that's where the creative arts comes part of transformation and change. And I think the arts help us in that too. The arts go against the straight lines.
What the arts is able to do is it bypasses the critical mind.
Mm,
And so through music, through plays, through stories, it's not about us. So we think, so we can, it bypasses the critical mind. And when they're talking about either improving ourselves or, fucking up or whatever the case may be, then we kind of dismiss it.
mm,
We dismiss it instead of owning it, instead of saying, okay, I may not believe this, and I may believe this. It allows you to go inside to see what is it that you believe
mm-hmm,
about whatever it is you're experiencing.
mm. Yeah, this is fun. So you get to do this. This
I
is when
love
you,
doing
clients
this.
call. Who calls you for help? Like who says, "I need a transformational life coach"? Do people know what it? Let's start with that. What is a transformational life coach? What do you do? She talks to people and says, "Stop saying shoulda." She
I
listens. I know you listen.
I do. I there are several things that I do. One is I not only listen, but I hear something beneath the words.
Mm-hmm,
I hear something that that person soul, and maybe that's what it is, channeling someone's heart and soul and being able to articulate possibly what may be going on in there
mm-hmm,
that they didn't think about, a different perspective, offering a different lens, all the glasses that I have, the different kinds of glasses, offering a different lens from which to see so that
mm-hmm,
maybe you can look at the same situation, like whatever situation you were in, whatever that was, I don't know. And it doesn't really matter what the story is. You see, what matters is, I mean, I had a client who went away with a friend who she didn't really want to go with, but she felt guilty about not spending time with her,
ew,
whatever, whatever, whatever. So she said, okay, let's go. They had the worst time. Because
shocking.
when we're motivated by guilt,
The
it's
guilt
not
trip.
coming from love. It's not coming from true, genuine interest and desire. If you
It's
go,
manipulation and victimizing and
you
accepting that in a way.
could call it that, sure. But
And
we're doing it to ourselves. We're the victim and we're also the perpetrator.
mm,
So what I get to
mm,
do is I get to point those kinds of things out to people.
gently.
Say you and well, I love being able, and this is what I'm honored. I love being able to pierce the ego with my heart.
Ooh,
I
I
love
like
that
that.
so much
Mm,
because it's a way of opening ourselves. If someone does it for me, not to me, then I get to take a look at myself through a different lens and a different light and learn something about myself that maybe needed to be healed, needed to be polished, needed to be softened, needed to have a different way of doing that experience so that we can have a different way of experience our being human.
hmm
And there's all
And
kinds of ways to
and mistakes are lessons. They're not. You shouldn't feel guilt.
now, isn't that funny? how many times we say it and we don't even
Am
realize.
I saying it more than I've ever said it now? Like now it's
Because if you
like a
don't
little
think of a
epidemic
brown
going
cow,
on.
all you're going to think about is a brown cow.
You know, when you see a brown cow, you get to have an extra drink in Scotland. If you're in a bar, they buy you a free drink.
Oh, that's funny.
I know, but I'm not going to get a free drink from saying the SH word. So, but you know, mistakes and learning these truths at times can be very difficult. And that's part of that ego side, that's the heart side that you feel disappointed in yourself when maybe it's like, hey, I learned this, let's move on. You don't have to live in the past of it. You can move on. And the quicker you do it, the easier, in my experience.
Yeah, and the quicker you do it, the quicker you do it.
Yeah. So, what led you to become a transformational life coach? And it's different than a life coach. You're helping people transform.
Yes, yes.
So, we
And
get to be butterflies.
whatever you want to be, you get to
I would
be.
like butterflies. I like
Okay.
that.
And you become a butterfly.
Okay.
And that's a great analogy because when we transform from a caterpillar to a butterfly, whoever said it didn't hurt to lose all those legs, lose a whole entire body and shed it. We've been walking on those little feet for a long time. And then to go inside a, chrysalis and morph into a whole nother being. I mean, talk about
Right.
transformation, right? And who said it's not painful? And who said that we didn't have to struggle? I mean, if a butterfly didn't struggle to get out of the chrysalis, it would die. And they've had experiments where, some like a kid will say, I want, let me help it, right? So let me cut a hole in the chrysalis so it can come out. Look, it's trying to come out, it's trying to come out. And the butterfly will die because the struggle is what pushes the fluid in the wings, pushes the
Oh,
fluid
I like
in the
that.
wings so that then
Mm,
you have fluid to fly. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to, it would be
mm,
blocked.
yeah.
For me, maybe I'm a fluid maker or I've been honored to pierce the ego with the heart for many clients that are extremely vulnerable. I had a
Mm,
client, a friend who had Parkinson's and he was an acting teacher. I mean,
mm.
an amazing acting teacher, and he could no longer articulate
Oh,
the Parkinson's. And he used to be big energy, walking around,
yeah.
take up all the space, and everybody would know he was there and had a loud voice and,
Yeah. Acting
oh,
teacher. Exactly. Yeah.
and then he couldn't articulate or
Oh.
speak. And so I mean, I could understand him, his wife could understand. They've been married 44 years. And this is an example of piercing the ego with my heart. And he came in to our coaching session and he said, I'm my students don't appreciate me. Now, all this time, because he was getting Parkinson's, it was getting worse and worse. He'd had it for many years. His wife filled the class with people who came for free so he could have a class. Because when you're a teacher
Mm.
and you're a student, you're paying for a class,
Yeah.
you
You're right.
want the feedback, you want the professionalism, you want all that. And so he said, my students don't appreciate me, very indignantly. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. Do you appreciate them?
Mm,
And he was like, what do you mean? I'm the king, I mean, I'm the one. They look up to me. And I said, Gene, your ability to speak is not the same as maybe your mind thinks it is. So
mm,
your mind, you're giving feedback saying, okay, I could feel the moment you were real, blah, 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 after they do a scene and you're giving them, feedback on their scene. But what's coming out is, and when him and the, that's what's coming out of your mouth.
mm. Yeah.
Nobody can understand you, and it makes it very challenging. So your wife filled the class so that you could have a class. Because as a professional, students expect a certain amount of professionalism to be taught. And
Mm,
as much as they love you, If they don't understand what you're saying, what's the point? And Tony's going to come up and she's been your protege for 44 years, and now she's going to become the master, and she will be the money-making venture in this family because you will no
Change.
longer be able to have
Mm-hmm.
that role because this condition called Parkinson's is making your brain think one thing and your body do another.
That's hard.
And I said, now it's time to bring her up to the front of the room next to you so she can interpret what it is that you're saying to the students. Because
Mm.
children or you live with somebody, you know what they're saying. You can,
Yeah, yeah.
toddler, you know what the toddler wants, and nobody else does, but you do. And now it's time for her to step into her
Mm,
mastery next to you.
mm. And that's a different kind of teamwork too.
Totally.
And a step back, but a different step forward. And
Yeah.
that's always the rocky road, right? Is that step forward that might not feel like a step forward at that time, may feel like a backward step, but it's a forward.
Yeah. Well,
Mm,
that's it too. That's why there really are no shoulds, because they're
mm.
all just a bunch of choices that we make based
And
on certain
every road
beliefs
has got
that
a
we
little
have.
curve.
Yeah.
Every road has a curve somewhere,
Right.
you know. How
Yeah.
many times does your GPS say slight right and it's really a hairpin
Oh,
turn?
sometimes mine lies to me. I'm not going that way. I argue. No, I'm not
I
turning
do that.
here.
I'll go the opposite just to make her mad. And she, if your GPS says you should have turned left, you're gonna get mad.
Oh,
So
you know
becoming
what? Wait a minute.
oh,
Do you remember this?
oh my, she's got the dude. Look
Do
at
you
him.
remember this? Because I was just thinking of your GPS statements.
Yeah, yeah.
You created, this is Mr. Wonderful.
Oh, we can't hear him.
Oh,
And for those listening, she's got a little man in her hands.
Mr. Wonderful says these statements that you've always wanted to hear from a man. And it's
Oh,
hysterical. What he just said that you didn't hear was, oh, thank you for giving me the directions. I really needed to know how to get ready. It's
yes, I will
very
get out of the car
funny.
and get
So I was
directions.
thinking the same thing, a doll with
Exactly.
GPS directions.
I love that. So for you, you've been good at this for so many years, right? But you've also studied a lot. I want people to understand that part of being a transformational life coach isn't like one day you wake up and go, I'm a coach. Tell everybody a little bit about your background in studies because you've studied under all kinds, like under so many masters, not madams. I
Haven't done that
should
one
not have
yet.
said that. I'm just joking. But well, what
Yeah,
do we, there's the master and the master of this and but that's what under so many different experts you've learned from and keep educating. I mean, every other day you're like, oh, I went here to this course, I went to this class, and so you're always learning, which I think is really important that if you're going to be coached by someone and have someone to help you muddle through something that they're still learning because if they're not still learning how are you going to still learn?
right. That's right. And then what kind of role model are you anyway?
It's like, oh, I learned this back in the 70s. It doesn't matter, nothing's changed.
Right, right. Or I haven't changed, but yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's so much to learn. If you just go into a library and look how many books there are in a library. I mean, go on Amazon, there are billions and millions and of
Mm-hmm.
books and information and perspectives. That's what it is. It's a bunch of different perspectives, and I like to expose myself to different perspectives to see life.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I'm grateful for is being a death midwife and an end of life trainer, because that perspective gives me, I mean, it gives me the last breath perspective. What
Mm.
do we want to feel in our last breath? And then my coaching clients, if they're couples, I ask them, I want you to imagine that one of you is in the bed dying and this is their last breath, and they're arguing and bickering. Is this the way you want to go out? Because you
Oh,
never know if
yeah.
breath is going to be the last breath. We just don't know that's a mystery.
Ooh, I know you could be swearing at someone and that's it. You just pulled that pipe too much. You got the anger pipe, so and that could be the last thing you say.
Listen, I pulled my neck out, C5 and C6, yelling at my husband, like,
See, that's
and then I felt something snap in my neck, and I herniated 2 discs in my neck and was
oh,
in the most excruciating pain I'd ever been in before. So yeah, so that
you know,
happens.
that's kind of interesting how things can manifest physically. I have a friend who's a massage therapist, and she was on a show years ago talking about there's guys with like suddenly their butt and their leg, the top of their leg, like their hip area hurts. And she goes, turn around, and they'll have their big wallet and they're sitting on their wallet all the time. So their body's out of alignment. And, they have this big wallet of cash, kind of look at me and my cash. I got a big wad. Anyway, that's what she'll have to just go simply. It's what you're carrying around in your butt that's doing it. Isn't that kind of the same thing? We carry this stuff around and wonder why when we're actually physically doing it sometimes.
Right. Well, when your shoulders hurt or, your upper back hurts, I mean, we can look at those analogies. It's shouldering the pain. What are we shouldering? What are we carrying?
Mm,
Is it ancestral? Is it from before? Or, we stand on the shoulders of those who come before us. So what are we standing on? And
mm,
how are we willing how much are we willing to break those ancestral generational habits and
mm.
patterns because they're in the DNA, and if we don't break them they'll be in our DNA, and then they go down to the next DNA and keep getting passed on. So I think one of the things for me in being a transformational life coach, it's a very interesting
Hmm.
way of saying something. I mean, you could probably have enough to say life coach, because life coach is really giving people a focus in the present. It's not so much psychologizing. Psychologists psychologize. They go back in the past and they look at what you did and why and blah, blah,
And then we have to redrudge all of that all over again and relive it. I
blah.
hate
Right,
that
right. So
personally.
there are people who need that way,
Hmm.
because
Sure.
they need to kvetch, they need to whine, they need to cry about it, they need to grieve and mourn the
Some stuff is so serious that it really needs
yeah,
that. I mean,
yeah,
there are real serious,
yeah.
but for me personally, I just don't want to see it anymore.
And the difference between a therapist or a psychologist is that they mostly go back into the past to heal stuff. And a coach works with the present, touches the
Mm,
past, but works with the present to reframe how you look at something so that you can do it differently now, so that it can come from a different perspective than what you carried before. And that's what I love to
mhm,
do. I love to offer different perspectives from which to see so that you can then
mm.
handle whatever situation is coming up in a different way.
It's kind of
Einstein,
like being in a dark room. Like maybe you go to a restaurant, right? You go to a restaurant and you can see what's on your plate, your table. You see that little bit of light, but you don't see everything that's going on. Maybe not all the art. Maybe the light is dimmed, right? See, so it's kind of like tunnel vision as humans. We get this is what I'm doing. Society told me to do this. This is what I'm supposed to be in. I hate my 9 to 5, but I'm doing it. I'm in that. And we even do this as a hand gesture as humans. But I think from you, what you do, you kind of go, hey, turn that light switch on over there and see what happens. Open that door. Have you looked at that? You know what I mean? You're not telling people what to do. Like that's what the should is, right? You don't
that's
tell people what to do. It's just kind of like, here, open that box on the left. It's kind of like a game show.
right. It's a suggestion. It's like I like to suggest different ways of seeing, looking, and doing, because I don't say you need to do this, you need to do that, because who am I to say what somebody else needs?
Hmm.
whatever they need is their own soul's divine direction. But what I can do is offer to look at something a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
How about looking at it from this perspective? Looking
Mm-hmm.
at it from a different way so that they can see it through different eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I also, during the time when my friend Jean and client said to me about the whole appreciation thing, I gave him the analogy of the Jewish mystical way that the universe was created. And that's when God stepped back to make room for creation.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I gave him that analogy. It's called Tzimtzum. It's a story. It's a beautiful story. And he got it. And then
Mm.
the next class, he did it. Tony came up, sat right next to him, and whatever he said, she interpreted, and it was the most beautiful class. And I sat in, I audited. I was so proud of him. I was so happy for him because then he got a satisfying experience and not a
Mm.
frustrating experience of thinking that his students don't appreciate him when,
Mm.
when he brings appreciation to the students of even being there, when he is impaired, when he's not able to articulate and they're still there.
Mm.
That's appreciation.
So it was appreciation for three parties and
Yes.
fourth with you too, you know? Nice. That's a beautiful thing. How did you know when you wanted to go into that as a main part of your life?
I think I was born that way. I
You
was
sound like Lady Gaga. I
I
was
was
born this.
born that way. Yeah. And I I didn't realize what it was called, but I was always an empath. I always
Mm.
sensed and felt things and saw things and saw that love can be expressed and kindness can be expressed. And I would share that with my mom, and she just didn't want to have anything to do with it because she wanted to raise her children the way she wanted. And she was not a
Mm.
happy woman. She was an
Mm.
unhappy woman. And because she was an unhappy woman, it spilled over into the way in which we were raised. A lot
Mm.
of frenetic energy, a lot of yelling, screaming, hitting, crying,
Mm.
whining,
Drama, sad.
drama, sadness, depression. Everybody in my family was depressed, including my dad and my mom. And my mom, her way she that expressed it was through rage and anger and hitting and screaming
Mm.
and yelling. And my dad was humor. That's where
Mm.
I get the humor from. My dad's
Mm.
depression was covered by humor,
Mm.
sarcastic and otherwise, and then inappropriate stuff that,
But isn't, but doesn't, that's what I'm saying. Things can become physically manifest from internal stuff, like we were talking about, shoulders, all of that, like, and they can manifest and get deeper and deeper into something that that person maybe never ever wanted or thought of doing or being. It just is what manifests over time. And that's when things have gone maybe a little too far, and could have been, if someone had sat down and showed a different, lens, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was,
I didn't say should have.
you see, it's so great when we become aware of those words that really
Hmm.
bring us down. I mean, they take us down. That's all there is to it. They don't, I look at that particular word as a mosquito. It has no
There's
redeeming
no positive.
quality,
There's nothing positive about it.
nothing
Not at
about
all.
it. I've dissected it, believe me. I've looked at it. I've really weighed
She
it.
wants to cut it up.
I just say pluck it out of your language, remove it, and don't use it anymore. Why can't
Mm,
it be as simple as that, that we don't use certain words that are detrimental to ourselves and others?
yeah. Well, the thing too, I mean, we've talked a lot about this. There's the should haves and all of that. And then really having control of your own life. At the end of the day, it's about how you lead yourself. So it is leadership, right? That you're helping people with. It's about self leadership, understanding yourself. But joy, you talk about joy a lot. And the yummy delicious, got to bring that up. But the joy is, I think people at times can get really, really stressed and forget those little moments of joy that joy and hope go a long way. No matter how small, doesn't have to be something grandiose, right? It could be little bits. And little bits that'll get you through a mile or two versus trying to hope for some big, huge thing sometimes. And sometimes the big, huge things happen, you know.
Mhm.
Ask Mr. Wonderful.
I want to see what else he's going to say. It's very funny. I found it in one of my bags with all my funny glasses. I think I got him in the 80s or something, 90s. I'm not sure.
His batteries are still going, so he's pretty
Oh,
wonderful.
he just said,
Okay.
"Here, you take the remote. As long as I'm with you, I don't care what we watch."
Oh, well, there you go. Hey, you got the perfect man right there. You
Mr.
do.
Wonderful.
But yeah, moving forward, it is, joy. How important is that to you?
Oh my God. Okay, joy is such another loaded word. It's a beautiful, beautiful word. And I have seen in my experience that so many of us do not, and I repeat, do not give ourselves permission to enjoy our lives,
Mm,
to enjoy what we're doing, to enjoy the experience, to enjoy being human, to just
yeah.
enjoy the journey, enjoy, be in joy. And joy to me is and maybe not to everybody else, but joy to me is a deep sense of well-being.
Mm,
It's a sense that, oh, you can just breathe, everything is good, everything is okay. And look at I feel joyful. I see three pens here. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're doing then. You can bring
yeah.
that sense of joy into your everyday, every moment life. Again, it goes back to we don't know when our last breath is going to be. So if we're not joyful now and we're waiting until whatever then or whatever to happen in order to be happy or joyful, we may never be happy or joyful because we're always waiting for it's that
Mm.
formula. When X, then Y.
Yeah, it's like people do that with money too.
Mm.
Like when I hit this amount, then I'll be happy. Well, you could hit that amount and, be in the hospital or something.
Yeah.
Tragic. Yeah, today it's a very cold day where we are, and I had to run out to the store, come back, and it's freezing cold. And I didn't take my jacket because, like, I could have, but I chose not to because I forgot about it and I raced out of the house. So anyway, coming back home, I heard all these birds just chirping, chirping, brought some things in, went back out to the car, and I'm like, I want to be like all huddled and just go back to bed. It's cold. I just want to be all snuggly. And I'm like, it's a dismal, dark, gray, cold winter day. Winter is here, y'all. And these birds are out chirp, 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 peep, 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 la di da di da di da. And I'm like, they're happy. Listen to and I was like, wow, how are you doing that when you're cold? I know it's cold. And that to me, right there, that little slight moment reminded me of that moment of, oh, yeah, be happy, you
At
know?
anything.
Yeah,
I when I was when
birds
I
always make me happy.
birds did. Oh, that's sweet. Yeah. Well, what you're saying, it's the simple thing. So you hear the sound of a bird chirping and it makes you happy for no reason because it's just a bird
It's
chirping,
beautiful. It's beautiful to me.
and it's
Yeah.
beautiful and it's beautiful. And so we make meaning out of whatever we want to make meaning out of. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we look at it from that perspective, right, then it's a beautiful thing and it makes you feel happy inside.
Mm-hmm.
Looked at it and you heard the birds chirping and you were cold and then you thought, oh God, I wish they'd shut up already because they're so annoying, then you wouldn't be happy. So
That sucks.
right, Exactly. So it really depends on what perspective you're bringing into the situation you're
I was
having.
just curious. I mean, how are they being all chirpy when it's so cold? Like, how are you doing that? And it was almost like they were almost louder than normal. Like that was,
They're
I'm like,
screaming, I'm cold,
I'm
I'm
cold, but like la 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 la
freezing.
la. This wasn't like this yesterday. You know, it wasn't like that yesterday. Well, no, it's interesting because that's the point. It's like you can take a really cold day and make it great or not. And
Mm,
that's kind of what I thought. I was like, well, these birds are not letting the cold get in their way of their little
right.
thing. All right, I know we make all kinds of sounds on this show. Well,
Oh,
so joy is a big deal. What makes you say, "Oh, that gives me joy"?
when I hear, well,
Mr. Wonderful. Bring it back.
humor gives me
Ah,
joy, just looking at something that could be so serious, or looking at myself that could be taking myself so seriously, and
mm,
lightening myself up. I think that brings me joy. When somebody says to me, "Oh my God, I never looked at it that way,"
mm-hmm.
and they change their whole way of being because of that one shift in perspective. Oh, that brings me so much joy. I can't even tell you. I'm like, oh.
No, that's cool. That's awesome. No, that's awesome. No, I think it is. When you see people thrive and smile, you can't beat that. When they're excited. So that is a transformational life coach. You got to like that.
Yeah, it's so deeply gratifying to my
What
soul.
about when you cook and
Oh,
someone
when
enjoys your
something
food?
comes out yummy, delicious, which most of the time, although I have to admit, I made some cookies last night and I burnt some of them. Half of them I burned.
I made latkes and then I put interesting things in them and then I made latkes into scrambled egg stuff.
Oh,
Anyway,
nice.
actually it was really good.
I bet it was.
Anyway,
How
it
could you
was.
put latkes in anything? You
Oh
can
man,
make a
latkes.
taco out of latkes.
Oh, I love latkes.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I got more potatoes today, so I'm happy.
Oh, very
More
nice.
latkes in the future.
Yeah.
Well, the joy part, I think we're supposed to have joy here on earth. Do you think that?
When we're born, I mean, we are a- as an innocent, when we look at human life, we are as innocent as we can be. And we're born with the possibility of having joy. We're wired for joy.
Mm,
We're also wired for impending danger, which gets in the way of joy and also helps us to survive. So we're wired for both. It's our
mm,
innate nature, it's our birthright to feel joy. And for some
mm,
reason, in our conditioning, the way we talked about our domestication, we grow up feeling like we're not worthy of joy, or we don't deserve to be joyful, especially when so many people suffer in this world and are
mm.
not joyful and are poor and are this and are that. What gives me the right to be joyful? Who am I? What makes me so special?
That's guilt.
You're so special.
Yeah, it's like survivor guilt.
Yeah.
Well, this is interesting too when you talk about the domestication of humans, right? Because we were wild cave people and all of that. And I was talking about this with a friend the other day, and I'm like, oh, you know, things have been passed down in generations, some good and some not so, right? That were painful or abusive or um, limiting beliefs, right? And that was a product of their time. And it is not necessarily a product of our time. If you look at the younger generation now, they're not like when I was a teenager versus teenagers now, it's kind of night and day difference of the shenanigans we got up to versus the shenanigans now. And like musicians are drinking wheatgrass smoothies before they go on stage. Back in the day, they were doing shots and drugs, and what they do in hotel rooms are completely different things. And yes, we all know there's also the big stars who do all kinds of really terrible things, that are up in the news. But on the whole, it seems that generally, generationally, we are changing. So our actual species is shifting. And so sometimes I feel like a lot of the strife and anger and the friction comes from the shift of change in generations. As one may progress this way and the old ones like I want to stick back here, yet the rest is going here. And I think when you have like what you do as a transformational life coach, you can go, you can do what you want to do. Like what's going to make you happy? And progression is you can't stop progression really. It happens if you look at civilization, we are changing. And so I kind of find that interesting. What do you think as a life coach? Do you think you're, in a way, part of generational change when someone shifts now and maybe that affects somebody else in a positive way, and then that ripple effect happens?
Well, definitely 100%. I mean, the Indians they had a lot of foresight. I mean, they instilled certain policies and procedures and philosophies into their culture, thinking 1,000 years ahead. I mean, they have a
Mm,
1,000 year thinking, and we don't even have 2 years. I mean, long goal is like, what are you going to do 5 years from now? It's like 5 years. I don't know what the hell. I mean, it's a way of looking at life. And yes, what you're saying is right, because when you are planting a seed of some
mm,
kind, and you're not conscious of the seed that you're planting, you're just throwing crap out,
mm,
right? And pollinating whatever it is, they're going to grow into whatever they're going to be. But when you're intentional in seeding, when you put out the seeds that you want to put out intentionally, then you're bound to change it's even the algorithm, you want to use that kind of language, changes, because like I vowed that I was going to stop that generational abuse.
mm-hmm,
Period. I was going to be the end door. There was no
mm-hmm.
more, no more, no more, no more. It stopped and ended with
It's
me.
a new day. Nina Simone
Today,
sings
it's
that.
a new
Yep.
generation. And
Mm-hmm,
this is an example of what you're talking about, because I vowed I would never hit my daughter. I vowed I would never have her afraid of me like I was afraid of my mother. I vowed that.
mm-hmm,
And I never hit my daughter. And she vowed the same. She never hits her children. It's already
mm,
broken. That generational chain of abuse stopped. So, yeah,
mm.
we can be intentional, we can be conscious. I love the whole idea of learning about it's like a spiritual Sherlock Holmes, learning about the human spiritual dynamic and how those two energies
Mm.
play with each other and interact with each other. And in fact, I'm doing is this time? When mm,
Go ahead.
when is this airing?
January 5th.
January 5th. Okay. Oh, January 5th. Okay. Well, January 18th, right? I'm doing an experience. I'm giving people a New Year's experience, and it's called Falling in Love with My Soul.
Mm.
It's 2 hours on January 18th. So I'm excited about it. It came through me, and I think I love the other thing I love is giving people extraordinary experiences. I love
Like
that.
that. Mm.
I love holding the space for that. I love witnessing it. I love that. Yeah.
Mm. So that's a transformation moment. So everyone, ShellyWizen.com for that. And what's in our first Shelly Wizen booklet coming out, digital booklet that you can get, link in the episode notes, and also go to ShellyWizen.com and sign up for a newsletter. You'll get it that way. It's a seasonal booklet that has her articles and interviews from before and a way of, keeping the wisdom from the wizen, Shelly Wizen's wisdoms. We have a Q&A with you answering the 10 questions, which we've touched on a little bit today. But one of the questions we asked you was, who would you bring to dinner? 3 people.
Mm,
So
hmm.
Maya Angelou is one of them.
Yeah. Maya Angelou, she was such a regal, I look at her as such a regal woman, how she articulated and carried herself, and how she just loved life, and how she expressed herself and her wisdom and her soul through her poetry that
And she was strong, strong.
flowed. It was just fluid and just felt like every word was a song, every thought was a notion, every
Amazing.
and to do it through poetry, to
Hmm.
capture the essence, to really give that flavor. So I
Hmm.
would like to have lunch with her or dinner with
She's a
her.
life force. I would call her a
Yes,
life force.
yes,
Yeah. And then
yes.
Einstein.
Well, Einstein, I use Einstein's quotes all the time because Einstein to me was an explorer. He was an adventurer. He was so inquisitive. He it was like he was the first Star Trek person to go out to under in space and just look out at the abstract and make some kind of sense out of it, you know.
Yeah.
And yes, people did that before him, but the quotes that he said, energy can never die, can never be destroyed, it can only change form. I mean, that sticks with me, those kinds of
Hmm.
things. I mean,
That's one of my favorites too.
oh,
Yeah.
and you can live life as if everything is a miracle or as if nothing is a miracle.
Yeah. He believed you could make mistakes, and that was your next lesson to get towards the big goal. He was like, you could make 1,000 mistakes. They're not a mistake.
Right. And that's
Failure
the
leads to
difference.
success with him. Yeah.
Yeah. Even that word is starting to mistake is another word that's starting to rub me the wrong way.
Right. Because that's why I say I call them
Judgment.
lessons.
Yeah.
Lessons,
Yeah. And they're
you
choices
know.
that we make and things that we learn from those choices.
I don't know. You might have to write a new dictionary.
Yeah.
Oh, I think.
Well, in the back of my
Ooh,
book, there's a glossary of terms. I don't know which terms I put in there, but yeah.
oh, I'm sensing the next podcast.
That's a good one. That'll be
Let's replacement. Like you know how we do that? What are you gonna do if you don't have eggs in the recipe? We're gonna
well, that's it. And there are several words we could play with on that. Worry is another one. Don't get me started with that word.
oh, that's crippling.
Yeah.
That's a
And
crippling.
we use
That's
that again against ourselves, and we use it
oh,
not, there's not a great deal, there's no redeeming quality to that one either, because
mm.
one of the definitions I love for that word is worry is a prayer for something bad to happen.
the intent goes there, man. It's like manifesting and
We feel sick to our stomach when we worry about somebody. We feel sick. We.
that's why we women start cleaning things because it's like I'm trying to get work it through. Like you know what I mean? You can't just sit there and fester, you know.
Yeah.
So your dad was another one that you wanted to dinner.
My dad was a character. He was a Navy man. He had two big tattoos when he came out. That wasn't when
Mhm.
tattoos were usually you only got them in the Army or the Navy or something like that. And
That was the badass. When you had a tattoo, it was a badass. Now it's like
he had a whole ship
decor.
in there, an eagle. He had an eagle and a
Mm.
ship. And he was funny. As I said, he had inappropriate humor sometimes, and he was funny. I mean, he really was. And yeah,
Yeah, inappropriate is okay. I mean, come on, it's just funny. I mean, Nancy and I we love comedy because it goes on wordplay most of the time,
yeah,
or this just funny, even if it's completely inappropriate. If
yeah,
it's funny. You know, how many times do we get the giggles before or after a podcast or
yeah,
during,
yeah,
over something completely inappropriate? You
yeah.
know, I
I think
mean,
Dad, when um, he had a he had arthritis in his neck, and he had a bone spur that was going into his throat. So his epiglottis didn't work anymore. So he couldn't really swallow. And they did put a feeding tube in him, but he had dementia. So he kept pulling everything out. And so they said, well, we can either just take everything out and let him go naturally, or well, we have to restrain him to keep a feeding tube in him. I thought, well, that's no way to live. That's not going to be good. So anyway, they had him sedated and he had a trach in his throat.
Oh,
They removed it. We decided the kindest thing to do would be just let him go as, natural. And they removed it and everything. And he's lying in the bed, in the hospital bed, and he's going, "Would you believe they took a tree trunk out of my throat?" And we said, "No, Dad, we can't believe that. My God, no." He goes, "Yeah, that thing in the back of your throat, that clitoris, it doesn't work anymore."
oh, that's why they call it the little man in the boat.
I mean, he thought the epiglottis was the clitoris. He couldn't remember
Oh
the
my
name of
gosh.
it.
Oh no, he really, oh, that's hysterical.
We were on the floor. I have it taped. I have it on
Oh
video.
my gosh, that's hysterical.
It's so funny. He's
That
fun. Yeah. Yeah.
that's funny. That's funny. That's
Yeah.
sweet.
Yeah.
That's sweet. Well, I love that. I love that question. And the other question I love out of the 10 questions is what would you do for a day? And so many people go, I love everything I do. So I wouldn't do anything. But well, you're just going to try something new for a day and just
Right.
to see what you like. And you want to be a nature photographer. So are you gonna come on the road with Nancy and I once in a while and go into a park and go photographing with us? Come on.
That'd be fun.
Is
That'd be,
that even a word, photographing? That's my new word.
oh, that's a new word. See, I
I'm
like
going out photographing today.
that. Good. That's good. I like that.
I
Yeah.
think when we see you that we need to go to a park and we have a champagne brunch, right? I think I know you know how to do a champagne brunch, right? And
I,
then we'll go photographing nature.
yes. I mean, I would just love to already know or be a pianist and be able to do this. Just do this and make songs and go, just sit at the piano and go, like,
It's just coming right through me.
no, yes, just play. I would love that. I would love to just
That's
be
the beauty of dance, right?
what?
Dance. That's the beauty of dance.
Yeah,
However, I mean, every dancer I know, the rigorous training and the no eating,
yeah,
no, that's
yeah,
sad. No,
yeah,
that's not, but I respect highly
right.
because dance does that. There's so much to do, Shelley. There's so much to do in the world.
Hey, that's
So
exactly
have some fun.
right.
I
That's right.
love it. Well, it's a new year. Are you excited? It's a new year. I
It is.
mean, to me, it's like it's turning a page. It doesn't really go with like it doesn't make sense, in the other sphere of the world, the new year of that. But it is a way of everyone coming together and going, we get to turn the page together and may we have more unity. I
Yeah,
hope so. I
yeah.
hope so. Shelley, always fun. Everyone, ShelleyWizen.com, sign up for our newsletter. She is here every first Sunday because we got to kick off a month with a Shelley, you know. Otherwise, we'll have to go, I should have listened. I had to do that. I'm sorry. I just had to do that. So don't use that word. Next month, we'll be talking about words that can be replaced. How about that? The
Good.
Shelley vocabulary will be coming up.
Right, right.
Thank you so much, Shelley. Thank you all for listening. Look in the episode notes for the link to our booklet with Shelley's articles that will get you through the winter season. Talk about relationships, how to kind of reset your life to move forward, right? That's what it's about. Winter is a good time to reflect and move forward. So we're going to go towards the light and flowers. Pretty soon, spring will be here and then we'll be giddy. I love it.
Well, we could be giddy now.
I see exactly why wait? Because if we wait, we'll go,
I
I,
have,
I didn't say it.
I think have waited.
Blankety blank. Take care, everyone. Thanks, Shelley. Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's Soul Diving Sunday show featuring transformational life coach Shelley Wizen. Follow Shelley at ShelleyWizen.com. Follow us at BigBlendRadio.com.